Well, that's what I wanted to talk about next is the actual protein because we all hear that we need these elevated amounts of protein, and there are studies to show that high amounts of protein actually don't lead to longevity, and the lower amounts do lead to longevity. And Dr. Valter Longo and his fast and mimicking diet. That's one of the things he comes upon that the amount of protein he suggests is so much lower than even a conservative health teacher out there or whatever. So, in your teachings and understanding, how much protein do you think somebody needs in terms of grams if they're trying to figure this out? How much protein on average should somebody be looking at?
Well, to go back to your point, I did a lot of work on longevity. I did a lot of research on calorie restriction and longevity, and we know that when animals reduce calories on a routine basis, as long as the nutrients are intact, they can live as much as 50% longer. What was interesting, though, is that protein restriction created some of the same effects on longevity that calorie restriction did, and even better was what's called methionine restriction. And methionine is one of the highest essential amino acids in animal foods, and it's way over the top. And it promotes an aging phenomenon. The original recommendations of 0.36 grams of protein per pound of body weight was probably fairly good and useful. That means if you weighed between 100 and 200 pounds, you would be eating about 36 to 70 grams of protein a day. So most people said 40 to 60 probably would work well. Now remember, 28 grams is an ounce. So, 40 to 60 is only a couple of ounces of pure protein in the diet. So you don't need a ton of protein, but we need it. Now, another suggestion came up, and that was that as people get older, there is a consistent loss of muscle mass, something that doctors called sarcopenia. And so what they discovered is that as people get older, they don't digest food as well, they don't absorb nutrients as well. Sometimes there's more damage that needs to be healed over longer periods of time. So they may need to up the protein game a little bit. So people recommend it as high as 0.45 grams per pound of body weight, which would be about 45 to 90 grams. Now they're recommending in this new guideline up to 140 grams of protein a day. That's way, way, way over the top. So I think the original recommendations in that range of about 40 to 60 to in that range was probably more than enough. And in fact, the bigger deficiency is not protein, it's fiber. So by upping the plant sources of protein, you're getting beautiful protein, especially if you're eating lentils, beans, or sprouted beans and lentils and grains, and you're getting nuts and seeds and things like that in the diet. You're getting more than adequate amounts of protein. And so the plant source is provided beautifully. I mean, look at people. I haven't had animal protein in 50 years. Does it look like I'm fading away? No, it's ridiculous. So people need to realize that protein is built from amino acids. Amino acids need the element called nitrogen. Nitrogen is the major gas that's in the air that we breathe. The air is 78% nitrogen, but no living thing other than plants can take out nitrogen from the atmosphere. Only plants can take it, and with bacteria in the soil, they fix nitrogen into the formation of amino acids. So you can make the case that all building blocks of protein all come from plants. And animal protein is nothing more than recycled plant protein. There is no reason on planet Earth to eat the protein in any animal body or any animal fluid at any time. Never, none, ridiculous. And yet we still keep promoting that. The truth is, eating a diverse, broad plant diet will give you all the protein you need. And we only need about that 40 to 70 grams a day, truthfully. Now, if you're under stress, if you have disease, if you're working out, maybe you could up it a little bit. That's where the additional thing came in, 45 to 90, but you're still in that range of about, 40 to 80 grams of protein a day.
Well, protein is such a general term, and you talked about amino acids, and you mentioned that amino acids, the methylene amino acid that's high in animal protein, and lower in plant-based proteins. And then there's leucine, which is higher in lower in you got to get a good amount of different foods to get the
Yeah,
amino
and
acids you need.
that's why we recommend a diversity of plants, not just one thing.
So would you agree the idea that word protein in general is kind of used haphazardly because somebody can get a lot of protein, but if they're not getting the good range of amino acids, they're not going to meet certain
Well,
of their needs?
remember there are 20 amino acids in the human body. Nine of those, depending on who you read, are what are called essential, meaning that we can't make them. So they have to come in the food that we eat. And as it turns out, if you're eating a wide range of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, or sprouted legumes, you're getting all of those essential as well as the non-essential. So you don't have to worry about it. But the problem with animal proteins, as I mentioned, is that some of those essentials are so exaggerated that they create a problem. Methionine is a big one. And methionine is so exaggerated in animal foods. The only place where methionine shows up higher in plant foods is in Brazil nuts. So you do have to watch the amount if you're eating volumes of Brazil nuts. Most people are not doing that, but that's where there would be an issue. As it turns out, most cancers have an addiction to methionine. It's actually literally in the cancer literature called methionine addiction. And the effect is called the Hoffman effect. So when you're eating animal protein and getting this exorbitant amount of methionine in beef and chicken and pork and all these different and all of these foods and dairy and cheese, and you're getting this exaggeration. And methionine will promote premature aging, cancers of various kinds. So we need the broad base of amino acids. Plants provide all of them that we need, and we need to move on from that and just work on the plant sources of protein.
And what are they for people that are watching? What are the good plant-based sources
Well,
of
if you think
protein?
about it, the highest ones are the ones that have now actually been recommended in the guidelines. This is one of the beautiful things about these new guidelines. They recalibrated or they redefined a list of protein foods. And interestingly enough, at the top now they put beans, peas, lentils, seeds, and nuts are the top proteins recommended. Bottom of the list were meat and dairy products. That's the new guidelines. That's the new recommendations. That's not what showed up in the guidelines. So to me, you need a broad base of all the legumes, beans, peas, lentils. If you want to sprout them, you can do that. You can sprout them too, but you can eat them in that form. Seeds and nuts, all the deep greens have a protein component. Think about animals that are the largest vegan animals on the planet: elephants, rhinos, hippos. They're eating huge amounts of protein in green material. So, wide range of dark, deep greens, seeds, nuts, legumes, lentils, peas, beans, greens, seeds. All of those things will take care of that.
We hear a lot of talk about lectins. So a lot of teachers talking about lectins in the beans and some of the greens. Uh, what's your opinion about that
Well,
particular
that's been
stuff?
one of the biggest pieces of ignorance that there is. There are many lectins that are powerful for anti-cancer effects and so on. And again, we're not eating raw beans; we're eating them either cooked or sprouted. And the fact of the matter is, when you do that, you disengage the negative impact of lectins or negative lectins, because again, the fibers and lectins in plants are essential for beneficial effects on the gut flora, on the health in general. So that's been, unfortunately, people like Gundry and others that have tried to scare people with lectins. Yeah, I mean, if you ate raw white beans, yeah, you double up in an emergency room, but nobody's recommending that. The fact of the matter is, you're recommending those in either a cooked or a sprouted form. And once you do, now you're taking you're getting all of this high protein, low fat, high fiber. These are ideal. In fact, some of the leanest, healthiest people on planet Earth are all bean eaters. We need legumes. Legumes are important. Whether you cook them or sprout them, we need them.
Well, let's look at that cooking versus sprouting. What are the advantages and disadvantages of either one? Like,
Well, you can make the case that by sprouting, you're not putting any heat into the food. You may not be disengaging any nutrient value. But again, some of the nutrients in beans and things become more available in a better way when they're cooked. So, for example, if you soak beans overnight, you get rid of an oligosaccharide that causes a little fermentation that can be tied into gas. If you cook beans long enough, you get rid of these inhibitors that can block some of the protein digestion, the trypsin inhibitor, and that will help. So there's a value in cooking some of those foods. But again, in sprouting, you're converting some of those things into an easier form. So you've got a couple of options. If you want to go completely raw, you can add sprouted legumes. If you want to do some cooking, I don't have a problem with having some cooked legumes in the diet. I think it's valuable.
Are the lectins, we know cooking destroys the lectins, but does sprouting destroy them or
Well, it transforms everything when you sprout. So yeah, it's safer. There's no question.
but it
The
does
digestibility is better. I mean, just take a look at people sprouting and eating sprouted beans and things. You don't see gas formation as much. You don't see any of that.
so do you think of somebody that's wanting to do, let's say, an all raw food diet, do you think in the long run somebody would be better off having a combination of cooked beans and sprouted beans maybe on different days switch off or to do either all cooked or all sprouted? Do you think what do
No, I think I think again, I think the more you mix it up and diversify, I think the better off it is. So I think having sprouted stuff, having some cooked stuff. I don't. I like having cooked starches and in the diet and cooked legumes in the diet because I find that it kind of diversifies the diet. It sometimes will satisfy hunger a little bit better, so there's not these cravings that sometimes can come up. So my feeling is I like it. Having some cooked sweet potato and legumes have always been kind of a mainstay of my diet. I've been on raw diets for extended periods. I just am happier when I have more diversity, and I find that my appetite and my cravings and all of that are a little bit more satisfied when I have some cooked starches. And I think if you look at many cultures of the world that have longevity, they do have some cooked starch in their diet, and I don't have a problem with that.
when you say a person's needs as they get older for protein go up, uh, but because their absorption of the protein is not as strong.
Could be,
So
and they're not, and
if they're
sometimes they're losing teeth, they can't chew as well. There's different things that can happen with aging that can compromise the nutritive value of what you're eating.
yeah, but if the protein absorption is weaker, why would adding more protein help that situation? I know
Because
they
if I'm taking 40 grams of protein and I'm losing 20, if I'm taking 60 and I'm losing 20, I'm still getting 40. That's what I'm saying. So by upping it, even if there's some loss, you're still compensating for that loss by making sure you're getting adequate amounts. That's all.
okay.
That's
Okay.
all there is to it. Nothing else to it,
Is there
really.
something a person can do in their younger age to help either prolong or eliminate that protein absorption issue so they won't have to update it later on?
Yeah, just keeping the digestive tract healthy. I mean, the healthier you keep it from early on, the more it's going to function later on. So, eating no processed foods, getting rid of the garbage, eating the kind of food we're recommending from as early in your life as you can. Because what it'll do is it'll keep that digestive tract intact. And then keeping physical activity and all of those things high. Because if you're going to start, most people are losing muscle mass by the age of 40. So, from that point forward, you want to make sure you're increasing the muscle mass. You want to make sure that you've got all that going on, and then you're eating foods that are going to provide you with nutrients without a lot of toxicity. And the more you do that, the more in your elder years you'll do better.
Nature's wealth, good for your health. This is the Raw Life Health Show. Nature's wealth, good for your health. This is the Raw Life Health Show.